believed that that was sufficient, but did not initially file a designation of treasurer form to actually create the PAC with the Wood County Board of Elections. Only later did they find out that they were in error in not doing so. All reports have been now filed. The committee created reports have been filed with the Board of Elections. Those were submitted to me, and the committee is now in compliance. My recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $50. I'm glad to answer any of the questions that the commission may have.
Any questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved,
Second.
moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, aye.
It's been approved by a vote of 7-0. Now we'll move on to case number 3. Thank you. This is Thomas Jr. versus Hafey, case number 2024D-026. Mr. Rick.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the complaint here asserts that the respondent did not include a proper disclaimer on certain campaign ad that was posted in a local newspaper. There were, I believe, 3 respondents listed. We have received responses from all of them. I have synopsized their responses in the brief outline below. Parties are here present. Mr. Thomas is present, I believe, yes. And then representatives of the Ohio Republican Party are present. I believe that Mr. Hafey is present, who's one of the other respondents. And then the Pickaway County Republican Party is also a member, and I presume they're here through one of their representatives, but I don't see that listed. Anyway, if the commission would like to hear from any of the parties, you can certainly do so. My recommendation is to find the violation. But, you know, again, parties are present. You can certainly hear more from them if you would so desire.
Members of the commission, would you like to hear from parties? Okay, who would like to go first? I see.
You'd be Mr. Thomas
Okay.
as the complainant.
All right, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you.
And before you start, you're going to
You
be
need to
sworn
be
in.
sworn.
Oh, we're just here for clarification. There were a lot of claims made as far as endorsements go. There were claims that Mr. Hafey was endorsed by the Pickaway County Republican Party, the Central Committee, and also by the State Republican Party. And we have no proof of that. There's nothing in their minutes that say that they voted on it. There was no vote taken on it. Giving money is not a an endorsement. So he didn't have that endorsement, I don't believe, but all of his literature that came out said that he did use their emblem. So that's what we just want to get to the bottom of, because it did sway a lot of votes, and it did change the outcome of the election, I believe. So that's what we're here for, is just clarification on it.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any questions of the witness? Director?
Nope, none for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And next,
Either Rachel Means, I guess, for the, on behalf of the Ohio Republican Party, and obviously Mr. Hafey. Well,
Ms. Raines, are you an attorney?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Chair Tavares, Vice Chair Hagan, and Commissioners of the Election Commission. I appreciate you taking the time to allow me to speak on behalf of the Ohio Republican Party. I also have my colleague here today from our law firm, Bricker Graydon, and Ryan Richardson is here with me today. I would first like to address what the complainant just said in front of you. Endorsements are not within the jurisdiction of this commission. And so if there is a concern there, it doesn't need to be brought to this venue. Additionally, parties are set to govern themselves. There's several cases recently, in fact, one in the 10th district that stated that parties should govern themselves by their bylaws, by their members, and what their certain committee chooses to do. So that should not be a part of this complaint. I would just like to address the allegations that were made within the complaint. So the complainant first alleges that the Ohio Republican Party violated our revised code 3517.20H1. And H1 is requiring that the disclaimer does not name a false, fictitious, or fraudulent name. And here, the Ohio Republican Party labeled the direct mailer properly by stating paid for by the Ohio Republican Party, which you can find in the complainant's Appendix D. So there's no false or fictitious or fraudulent name that is identifying the source of the political communication. So therefore, there should be no violation found. Additionally, the allegations made in regards to the logos that are used in the direct mailer or some of the content in the direct mailer is no longer within the jurisdiction of the Elections Commission. There used to be a false statement statute, but it was found unconstitutional in 2016. And therefore, bringing any type of complaint with that as a basis does not make sense for this venue. The complainant also alleges a violation of 3517.20H2, which I will quote, read. I quote, a political action committee or political contributing entity to use or cause to be used in the making or issuing of a publication or communication, including within the provisions of this section, a name or address that would lead a reasonable person to believe that the publication or communication is made by or on behalf of a county political party. The Ohio Republican Party is a major political party in the state as defined in revised code 3517.01A1. It is not a political action committee. It is not a political contributing entity. And in fact, both definitions for those two terms exclude a political party. So therefore, that statute simply does not apply to the Ohio Republican Party and should not be found as a violation. So I would request that Director Richter's recommendation be adopted.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the witness? If not, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Akey.
Mr. Heath.
Mr. Hathey, before you start, you'll be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, honorable members of the committee, I have submitted a response to Mr. Thomas's allegations, and I stand on what I've submitted to the board.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the witness? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Richter.
No, Mr. Ricketts
Oh,
is
Mr. Ricketts.
present, and he is a representative of the Kauai County Republican Party. That is also one of the respondents.
Mr. Rickert? Are you an attorney?
I am not.
Okay, you need to be sworn in.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Chair Tavares, Vice Chair Hagan, members of the Ohio Elections Commission. My name is Travis Ricketts. I'm the chairman of the Pickaway County Republican Party. I also submitted a response. I stand by that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Are there any questions of Mr. Rickett? If not, thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Richter. Okay, you see the recommendation of the executive director. Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move to accept the executive director's recommendation.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Been moved and it's been approved by a vote of 7-0. Thank you all very much for coming in.
What's wrong before? Fine.
Okay, now we're going to move on to category 3, the group recommendations. We've got a number of cases that are being dismissed for failure of service. I'll read them into the record. The first one, and all of them, no. Couple of them are 2022 R. That's 452 453, 458, 459. And then we have 2023R, and all of the rest are 2023R-386, 307, I'm sorry, 386, 407, 430, 433, 436, 444, 445, 448, 449, 450, 454, 511, 514, 516, 517, 523, and 524. And those are dismissed for failure of service.
All right, I would request that the commission act on that recommendation. I'd be glad to offer any further example or explanation, although I've provided at least a brief one in terms of we've made repeated attempts to reach the parties, not gotten service on them. And I believe that this is the appropriate approach toward resolving these matters, unfortunately.
Fair motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
and Mr. Richter, I want to make a correction. You said 2023R-407. It's actually 2023R-417.
Thank you very much for the correction.
Okay.
Just briefly, Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
Mr. Ricker, I want to weigh the gravity of the seriousness of any of these allegations versus service. I mean, certainly we could hire a private process server if any of them were significant enough. Are any of them of sufficient weight that we should evaluate service through a process server, or are you comfortable dismissing the cases?
I mean, these are all just what I would refer to as relatively simple late filing cases in terms of late filing an annual report or an addendum, something along those lines. And so I don't believe that is sufficient to take any further action. I believe that this is the best approach.
Fair enough.
Any other questions of the
Sure.
executive director? Yes, please.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Kirshner's comments, Mr. Richter, a few of these are 2023s. I see a couple of 2022s. Were there any that were in the quarter 3 or 4 of 23 that maybe would have had less time to, this commission has had less time to receive service or for you to do the due diligence required?
I don't, the best answer I have is I don't believe so. Let me look here quickly at some of the. These are mainly, like I can see an addendum that was due in July of last year. A lot of them were for 22 or earlier annual reports, which would have been January of 23. And so, no, I think these are all pretty much. Just to make sure I'm toward the end here. Yeah, no, these are all pretty much early in 2023 or earlier than that.
Thank you.
If I could just add, to the executive director, I wouldn't want to permit lack of service to allow people to evade the jurisdiction of our commission. And certainly we could retain private process servers if necessary. I have some contacts if you need them. So if there is anything of sufficient gravity that you think service at an extra level should be inserted, I just encourage you to do that.
Okay.
In the future.
Okay, thank you. I will. A lot of these are, as you could tell from looking at the ICWs, if you looked at the ICWs in relative detail, are relatively repeat offenders that have not filed for a while. And I'm having ongoing conversations with some of the staff at the Board of Elections. And honestly, I just talked this morning briefly with Mr. Caraway about getting together with him to discuss further on various options. It wouldn't be dissimilar, I think, from what you're talking about. Or potentially even. I'm not sure exactly how I want to phrase it in terms of, trying to get better opportunities to serve some of these folks.
I would just say that, my experience, and we've used private process servers in the past, you just pay a fee to a reputable entity and we can achieve that. But I just don't want people to be able to, like I said, evade our commission just by virtue of evading service. So if we
Okay.
need to
Agreed.
secure service, there are certainly reasonable ways throughout the state to do that.
Agreed. I did get an email from one of the counties. I was checking back on whether service had been accomplished or whether any filings had been made at the Board of Elections. One of the boards at least reached out and indicated that some of the people that they had previously referred, I think it was Summit County, are no longer in their county. So that's another reason why we're not necessarily getting services. They're not there anymore based on what the county is reported to me.
And I appreciate this discussion and certainly our commissioner bringing up the idea of a process server. We do need to take into consideration our budget. And this is one other item that we might want to put on as we look at increasing our budget with the General Assembly. Anything else on this?
Madam Chair, I am prepared to make a motion.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's been approved by a vote of 7-0. Next, we'll move on to case number 2023 R-313. This is to declare the committee terminated and dismiss for failure of service. Mr. Richter.
Yeah, in a similar vein to what we were just talking about, when I reached back out on this particular case to Henry County, the staff at the Henry County Board had indicated that there was their belief that this gentleman had moved out of county and was no longer resident in Ohio. And so they indicated a desire to see this committee terminated, but we still haven't gotten service. And so my recommendation is to dismiss the case for failure of service, but to also declare the committee terminated so that we can inform the Board of Elections that we have made that action.
Any questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next is a $50 fine. This is a first referral report filed about 6 months late, but a response was submitted. This is case number 2023 R-440. Mr. Richter?
Yeah, in recent days, I received a response, which I synopsized. It was in the updates that I sent back to all of you yesterday, where the gentleman explained the circumstances that led to his late filing. And so my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a fine of $50.
Are there any questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next case is the $100 fine, and Mr. Richter is going to make a change in that recommendation, but this is a first referral. The report has been filed and there's been a response.
There has been a response.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is case number 2023 R-502. Mr. Richter.
A response came in this morning from the treasurer for this committee, whereas he explains some of the circumstances that led to the report not being timely filed. He changed residences in October of 21. Didn't necessarily update the Board of Elections on that, so didn't receive a reminder notice. But the report was filed, has been filed. Subsequently contacted by the Board of Elections. He thought it was a mistake, but then he realized that was not the case. And so the report was filed. Check to see how long. Apologize for the delay. I should have gotten this brought up on the screen. Yeah, the report was due in January and was not filed until March. And so about 3 months late. So my recommendation now is to find a violation and impose a $50 fine, not a $100 fine.
Are there any questions of the executive directors? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Been moved, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That has been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next category is $25 a day with reconsideration option. No reports were filed. Service was achieved. These are cases, all 2023 are. First is 278. The second is 359, 470, 488, and 513. Mr. Richter.
As indicated, the persons that are before the commission for the first time, the report has not yet been filed. No response has been submitted. So my recommendation is to find a violation and impose a per diem fine of $25 per day until such time as the report is filed. But give the person the opportunity to have the matter reconsidered if the report is filed and a response submitted to the commission requesting reconsideration.
Are there any questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next is consolidate the cases, find a violation, and impose a fine of $25 a day with reconsideration option. These are cases 2023 R 323 and 383. Mr. Richter.
Yeah, in 2021, we found a violation of a good cause the case involving this particular candidate and committee. Subsequent, we've had trouble getting service, but we finally gotten service here. And so I'm recommending that we consolidate these matters that are outstanding and impose a $25 a day fine. But give the person the opportunity to have the matter reconsidered if the reports are filed.
Are there questions of the executive director on this cases? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next is $25 a day with reconsideration option with a payment of $250. This is case 2023 R-474. Mr. Richter.
This is the second time we've had this group before the commission, where the report has not yet been filed. And so my recommendation now is to impose a per diem fine of $25 per day from the date the report was due until such time as the report is filed. But give them the opportunity to have the matter reconsidered. But in order to have the matter reconsidered, to pay a fine of $250.
Are there questions on the executive directors? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion has passed by a vote of 7-0. The next category is dismiss the treasurer, consolidate the cases, find a violation, and impose a fine of $25 a day with reconsideration option with the payment of $250. And this is two cases, 2022 R-513 and 2023 R-413. Mr. Richter.
Yeah, I received some information from the Board of Elections. The interesting, if you look at closely at the one of the upcoming cases, there are two committees in Cuyahoga County called Support Our Schools. This one's in Bedford, the other one's in Brooklyn. And staff up there has been working with both, trying to get them to file their reports, come into compliance. In this particular case, what I've been informed by staff at the board is that the person who is listed as the treasurer, if you look at the ICW, Phil wasn't smart enough to call this one up either before I got into it. Loretta Dunkel was an employee according to staff at the board, she was an employee at the school district, retired, and subsequently the school district has not done anything to replace her as the treasurer for the committee. This person, left employee of the school district, according to the board, has reached out to the board repeatedly and said, I don't have any information anymore. I'm not acting as the treasurer. And so the board is requesting that we dismiss her. She's had some conversation with staff at the school board to try and have them come in and resolve this. She's been working with them to try and get them to come into compliance. Has not been successful in doing so. And so that's kind of the background for my recommendation to dismiss the treasurer here, based on the request from the Board of Elections. Consolidate these cases, find a violation, impose the per diem fine of $25 per day, give them the opportunity to have the matter reconsidered with payment of $250 fine. I'm glad to answer any other questions if the commission has.
Are there any questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion to accept the recommendation of the executive director.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? That has been supported by a vote of 7-0. The next category is consolidate with case number 2023 R-521, find a violation and impose a fine of $14,650 plus $25 a day with reconsideration option. And the cases are 2023 R, both 2023 R, first one 452, second one 521. Mr. Richter.
Well, other things have been undeliverable. We got service on these two cases on July 11th. There was one, the 452 case and this one are both outstanding. And so and we've had prior findings against this group dating back to 2019. So my recommendation here is find a violation, impose fine of the per diem fine of $14,650, which reflects $25 a day from the date the original report was due in case number 452 until today's date, and then $25 on into the future. I'll be glad to answer any other questions that the commission may have.
Any questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion? So moved. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next category are consolidate the cases, find a violation, and impose a fine of $76,000 plus $100 a day with reconsideration option. And the cases are 2022 R-515, 2023 R-066, and 2023 R-414. Mr. Richter.
I guess persistence pays a little bit. We didn't have service on earlier matters, but subsequently did get service as it relates to this particular meeting on these matters. And so my recommendation is to consolidate all three of these outstanding cases and impose a fine of $76,000, which represents the 760 days from the date the report was due in case number 2022 R-515 until today's date, and then on into the future. With $100 per day. Staff at the Board of Elections have indicated that they have been attempting to repeatedly get in touch with the person here with little success. And that the person, the last time the person filed a report in either 2019 or 20, it showed $6,000 in the campaign account at that time. They continue to work aggressively to get this committee into compliance. And so we're hopeful that this kind of a finding may get their attention and get them to move forward. I'll be glad to answer any of the questions the commission may have.
Are there any questions of the executive director?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Mr. Richter, service has been completed. Have they ever submitted a response or acknowledgement that any response to multiple referrals?
No, if you look back, I mean, we made other findings against them in 2018, 2019. And there was a good cause finding initially. But subsequent to that, I guess I'd have to answer the answer is no, for whatever reason. And so, well, the fine amounts continue to mount.
And at this point, most likely we will see another referral at some point with the 2024 R.
I would anticipate that, yes. Actually, sitting on my desk is a pile, say, Chris, about that thick? Yeah, from Cuyahoga County, so yes.
Thank you.
Are there other questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I will make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Caraway. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next is continue upon the request of the staff attorney, Mr. Richter. Oh, this is case number 2023 R-424.
This is a case for a local committee that's kind of been involved with the whole situation involving Mr. Curlis. In this particular case, the candidate has passed away. And so I need to reach out and try and contact the bank to see what, if any, information they could provide before we move forward on this. And I have not yet done so. So I apologize for that. I'm going to go ahead. The other cases are the next group, actually the Support Our Schools Brooklyn staff board has indicated they have a meeting planned with somebody who will hopefully bring their reports into compliance. I believe it's either next Thursday or Friday. And so staff at the Board of Elections ask that we continue this matter to give them the opportunity to hopefully resolve those matters at that point. The group after that, I talked to Ms. Merletti earlier in the week. She gave me her explanation on what has led to her not having filed those reports. I anticipate bringing that back either at the September 26th meeting or in October after she submits a response. I understand she's worked with the Board of Elections to do what she can. Her treasurer, according to her, her treasurer has more or less abandoned her and other persons in Summit County and is no longer in contact, had all of her records. And so we'll probably need to declare her committee terminated and make some sort of a final resolution for her. And then all the rest of the other ones are just where, we haven't been able to get service. And so I'm requesting that we continue them so that we can continue to try and get service on those persons.
Mr. Richter, so you're referring to the next to the 2022 R-514 and the 412?
Yep, that and then the 457 and 528. That's Ms. Merletti, who I talked to earlier in the week.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue those?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's been approved by a vote of 7-0. The next category is continue for service. That is cases. These are all 2023 R 410, 418, 451, 458, 459, 462, 464, 471, 478, 480, 484, 510, 518, and 520. Mr. Richter?
We're still working to get service on those folks, and I believe that hopefully we'll be able to do so, or you'll hear from me in the future and we'll move toward dismissal, unfortunately, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get service on some of these folks.
Thank you, Mr. Richter. So is there a motion to continue these?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Madam,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, I just had a question on not the ones dealing with Mr. Richter asking for continuing, but I thought that the chair had the power to continue.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
But you didn't in this
I know.
particular case, so I wasn't going to
Okay, then.
interrupt you while you were on the.
Right.
All right.
He wasn't gonna stop your.
I mean, I did,
You were cruising.
Okay, then we will.
but Madam Chair,
Yes.
I did want to make a distinction between the ones continued upon request of staff attorney, which we did make a motion. I believe that's proper.
Yeah,
But again, you have the power as the chair to continue.
Well, we will just go right ahead and make
Continue.
that.
Okay, thank you.
We'll make that recommendation. Thank you very much, Mr. Lyle.
Sure.
So next is reconsideration. This is reconsider the matter, vacate the previous imposition of the per diem fine and instead impose a fine of $100. And this is case number 2022 R-463. Mr. Richter.
Yeah, this was originally before the commission in December 22, where we imposed a per diem fine. Subsequently, I apologize for not including the date that it was filed in there. I don't have that file in my possession right at the moment. I think it's over there. But the report has been filed. A response was submitted. just explained there was little activity in the account. Time was filing and due, and the need to submit the report was initially overlooked. Until the recent notice from the commission was received, the former treasurer was not aware that the matter was outstanding. And so my recommendation is to reconsider the matter, vacate the previous imposition of the per diem fine, and instead impose a fine of $100.
Are there any questions of the executive director? If not, is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? That's been approved by a vote of 7-0. Next is an advisory opinion, Mr. Richter.
This was before us previously. We continued to today's meeting at the request of the Secretary of State's office. I had brief discussion yesterday with the Secretary's staff. They have indicated that they didn't have any changes that they wished to make. They did have what they referred to as some guidance, which I've kind of laid out to some people in terms of they believe that this opinion was, I guess I would say, in concert with the advice that they provide to people when they are faced with questions under similar circumstances. And so that's why they didn't necessarily have any updates on this updates on this opinion. And so I'm comfortable with what the opinion reads and says. I've made a couple of minor changes from what was originally circulated to commission members. And so I would recommend that the commission approve this. If there are any other questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Are there any questions of the executive director, Mr. Hersher?
I do have a question. When you spoke to the Secretary of State's office, did they indicate that the advice that they provide is consistent with the advisory opinion?
That is the impression that I took from what was said to me. Yes.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I have a question for
Sure.
Mr. Richter. So
Lyle.
I didn't raise this question last time when Secretary of State was here, but it's my understanding that even though there may be comments that like we've had in the past from Mr. McTighe on an opinion and others, that it is under our purview to issue that without outside, how can I say, influence, I guess. I mean, that is within our ability, right, to issue.
That is, yeah, we have the statutory authority to issue advisory opinions on statutes that are within the commission's jurisdiction, which is the case here, 35, 17, 10, and 13. And historically, we have very rarely, to be honest with you, but we have in the past, had comments, conversation with interested parties. I would probably point out Mr. McTighe and Mr. Bry, probably more than anybody else, because they have historically been more involved with commission operations than anybody else. But generally speaking, once the opinion is, let's say, finalized, circulated to everybody in advance of the meeting, and then the commission members all have their say and or review. Commission will then approve an advisory opinion without any further, I don't know if I want to say discussion, because the commission members, certainly you all have had input and conversation as it relates to any opinion that we approve. But that would have been, I think, the first time that we have ever delayed approving an advisory opinion as requested by an outside party. I know there was one particular time where I requested the commission hold up consideration of an advisory opinion that we never issued. But that's a whole different story. So, that was the first time.
Yeah, that clarifies my understanding. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Caroline.
I think what we did at the last meeting was more of a courtesy. Because the secretary, I think he was in military service, as I understood, and hadn't had a chance to review and offer some suggestions. But I agree. It's my understanding that we don't necessarily have to seek out their approval, but Mr. Richter, I do applaud you for, I think it was the right thing to do to reach out to a couple of attorneys that have a lot of experience before this commission and particularly this issue, and also Secretary of State. So
Yeah, Madam Chair, I agree with Mr. Caraway. I just wanted to be clear as to our authority with respect to opinion. I agree. I mean, that we deferred for the secretary at the time.
Thank you very much.
I would request a motion to approve with direction for the chair to sign the opinion.
So moved.
second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's been approved by a vote of 7-0. Thank you very much. Other business, we have our next meeting on September 26th. Mr. Richter, anything you want to?
Well, obviously I had 12 scoped out on your calendar, but we didn't get notice out to have any kind of campaign finance cases from the boards of elections, and no other filings have been, or other submissions made on which we put on that agenda. And so we'll just go ahead and cancel that matter for that case.
We're canceling the 12th.
We're canceling the 12th, so don't feel the need to come down here. We are on still for the 26th. So be present for that. And also, I finally got concurrence from all the parties yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, that we will have a meeting now on October 3rd to continue consideration of the Hicks versus Stewart case. And so Chris and I will be working on making sure that our witnesses are properly served and notified. And so hopefully we'll be able to move that forward. The parties have again indicated their interest in trying to resolve that matter on that day, to which I would say, I hope so and good luck. And we'll see how it goes from there.
So, Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Mr. Lyle.
just a question with respect to our time for the 3rd. What should we book, Mr. Richter? for?
I have received when Mr. Stoutberg, who is obviously not here today, responded back, he indicated that he thought he might have a hard out at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
And I also had a brief conversation with Mr. Kirschner as it related to a similar time frame for that. And so now that it's being discussed here and when we go about circulating notice, I will make sure the parties are aware that the matter will proceed, until either hopefully conclusion or 4 p.m.
And so again, that is the September 26th.
No, that's October.
The October. Okay, so October.
You said September. You gave me a heart attack.
Okay.
Colorado. I was like, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's all be clear. This is
October 3rd.
This is in reference to the October 3rd meeting, that there's a hard stop at 4 o'clock. We hope that the parties conclude the matter on October the 3rd, but the hard stop is 4 o'clock. Yes.
Madam Chair to Executive Director. What I'm trying to get more clarity on is if they're not complete, right, by 4 p.m., then we kick this back out for another date and it just continues to go on and on. Do we have the authority to set dates and times, give them a 2-day time span, and that's it?
Well, I mean, while the simple answer to that might be yes, the challenge is we want to make sure that we give the parties a sufficient amount of time to present their respective cases to the commission. And historically, it has been shown that these cases take more time than we may wish for the parties to get their full presentation of evidence to the commission. And so I don't believe that trying to set a hard date, while it may sound like a good idea, I don't believe that trying to set a hard date or time to tell them to finish by is really beneficial to the commission in terms of getting all the information we need to make a full and complete determination of the case.
Madam Chair, if I could,
Mr. Kirschner?
just briefly, that is really the primary reason that I asked about the witnesses at our last hearing. And it seemed to me there were a relatively limited number of witnesses that we needed yet. So it's going to be on the parties to present their evidence as timely as they can. But Mr. Richter, if you could just communicate, they could try to make it as streamlined as possible because there didn't seem to be a lot of witnesses left. I thought maybe 4.
I think there's less than that. Presumably there would be less than that, but I don't just, but yes, I understand what you're saying.
So it's really on them to be able, if they want a decision, or at least to be able to streamline it, to try to get through as much as possible on the 3rd so that it can be concluded, because it's Commissioner Davis's comment, I agree wholeheartedly. And then just secondly, so that I can confirm our hearing dates, the next hearing will be September 26th.
The next meeting of the commission is the 26th.
And then the 16th, and then the 31st of October. Okay.
That is
So
correct.
3 hearings in October.
That's correct.
No, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Knight.
So, just to, I guess, piggyback off of what's been said, without individualizing, our history here has been to, do the opposite of what Mr. Kirschner said, requested. And though we communicate it, we allow in the essence of letting someone present a full case, we allow them to meander. You go above and beyond extraneous, irrelevant information, repetitive, often argumentative and insulting to the commission of the process. And I mean, in my personal opinion, it can extend these things 2-3 times what they should be. So, while maybe setting a hard deadline may or may not be in the best interest, if we could make the request in some way, shape, or form with some teeth and perhaps have triggers that prevent that, because I mean, based on the number of witnesses, it certainly seems reasonable if we keep to a process that is streamlined to get it done, but we have had a tendency in the past to not do that. So just wanted to make that, I guess, point and quasi request.
Do so.
Madam Chair, for
Yes, Vice Chair Hagan.
the executive director, I don't think I need this since we're just talking amongst each other, but as it relates to that, we kind of coming up to a case of this sort after taking a lot of that perpetual abuse had stated, maybe we put general time constraints of everybody has a fair amount for each tax, and then that just kind of limits it and pushes it along. We did that in agriculture committee when we were hearing exotic animal legislation, other things that just, we knew were going to take a massive amount of attention and time, but just make sure we have fair party time to each. So that might be a way to stay in the 4 p.m. timeframe while making sure we have a fair process. And then having even said it in advance of that meeting, pushed it to happen. So just kind of setting the tone right now. It's good.
Yeah, I agree. I would just say, Madam Chair, I just did quick math. We give an hour a piece per witness, even if we have 5 plus 15 minutes for closings. And I might be even more restrictive than that. It seems to me they'd be able to get through witnesses in 45 minutes apiece, 15, no more than 15 minutes apiece per closings, and we should be in good shape. I guess what I would ask, because we hadn't been overly formal about this in the past, let's pin down, if you could, Mr. Richter, the witnesses, and communicate some general timelines. There's no reason the witness testimony should exceed an hour per witness. 15 minutes for closing seems more than reasonable to me. Under those parameters, given the statements about the witnesses that would attend, we will not exceed 4 p.m. And then all we would need to do is maintain that. Reach out to council maybe, Mr. Richter, see if we can get agreement on that, and we might be in good shape.
Okay.
We don't have to worry about the second date.
Anybody else have any other comments or suggestions? Mr. Lyle?
Yes, ma'am. So I have two. One's more an educational thing and the other is on point here, what we're talking about. We have had discussion about limiting time, which I'm all for. Trust me, because I know the last hearing that we actually had, I believe it went 5 days that we had. And, it's hard, obviously, not only on everybody, but it's hard when we have to then be the arbiters and make a decision because, so much time has elapsed. And if you don't review the tapes, I don't know how you can make a decision because there's just, a huge gap in between. That being said, given where we're at, we had discussion before that if we were gonna change the rules, implement the rules, can we do it mid-case? As opposed to starting fresh? Does that, you see any legal issues with that going forward?
Yeah, I was just referring to an agreement among the parties to maintain a streamlined hearing as opposed to hard and fast rules. Let's have the executive director have a conversation with
Oh,
council.
no, I'm with you. I agree with that. I'm just saying that I thought this is going back. We've had several discussions about this, but I think it was, I'm trying to remember. Peter had raised this, that if we were gonna implement something, we would actually have to do it before the case started. And I'm all for that, don't get me wrong. I think we should have limited time, so, adequate time. But, so we don't have 2 extra days than what we needed, in my opinion, from the last hearing. So I guess I'm just throwing that out. You don't have to answer, you can think about that, but I know we had discussion about not doing it midterm or, mid-case, because that could have some problems with it. I don't know if it could or couldn't. I agree with Mr. Kirschner that if you reach out to council to do that, the problem is, as we all know, it may not happen with the other council or the person presenting the case. The other thing I just wanted to throw out for the new members too, because it caught me off guard on my first hearing, but we have, correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Richter, but once the hearing is concluded, we then have 30 days to make a disposition on the case, correct?
We can, yes,
Right, so we don't have to make a decision right then.
correct,
That gives us time to review tapes, our notes, think about the case.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
And,
As I will always say, though, I mean, generally speaking, the commission has gone immediately to make that decision. Not that I would always encourage that, but it has. But we do have that ability to hold on and make a decision within 30 days after the conclusion of the evidence.
Okay.
And on that note, I would suggest that if we do not want to make a decision on that day, that somebody make a motion to delay the decision.
Yep.
Thank you. I think the discussion has been very good. If Mr. Richter can reach out to the 2 councils and see if we can get an agreement on the time frame, that would be great. I agree that if you're changing directions midstream, it's a little awkward. However, we can put a policy in place for the future. And if the commissioners would like to do that, I would suggest we do that at our next meeting.
And Madam Chair, I would just back you up in that this is as much a response to their complaints about there being no perceived end to the case. So this is as much a courtesy to them as it is a courtesy to the commission. And because it's a response and it's informal, I don't feel like it's any way cutting into the dance. And with it not being a policy, that still permits us the room that if there was an egregious scenario where there needed to be additional testimony, we're certainly not looking to deny that in any way, shape, or form.
Everyone okay? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn today's meeting at approximately 11 a.m.
Thank you very much. There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. You're out of here on time. You can go. Enjoy your morning.
Oh, I found out.
Both things were still circulating. I didn't
Oh,
know,
wow.
maybe it's not contingent on my presence, but I just wanted to make sure you guys were paying. attention.
Wow.
It should be fine, yeah, it should be fine. It was just that 26. Sorry.
Sweat off my brow.
Okay.
I'm just making notes, like, the interesting.
Yeah, I told him a couple.
Yeah,
Yes.
just picture, so we'll need.
Chris, do you know, is this room left open or do they shut it down and lock it up after us?
I mean, they'll start cleaning through and.
Oh,
you know,
I was gonna ask. I had seen.
Oh, he's essentially talking until the end of business.
Because
Oh,
So
beautiful,
I would
beautiful.
say
Okay, if I could hang out here. Awesome.
GV,
So obviously.
I literally.
GV and six.
I just end up driving home and I just jerk my business there.